This video is for those of you who have never pitched a tent in snow before. I have never slept much in tent in snow before or in the winter myself, besides the military. I tried once in the garden, but I want to do it more. So, what's important before every hiking trip is that you check your gear, and this is what we're doing now. Checking if both of the cloths are in the tent, the poles and the stakes. And we're trying to put up the whole thing and see if everything's okay. And once you have done that, you are ready to go hiking. So we're starting with flattening out the surface. Ideally, we should have skis on or snowshoes to flatten this surface and area. But since we're in the garden now, we can only use our feet, and the snow isn't too deep. You should probably use a little more time than I'm doing to do this, but this is for demonstration purpose only. So I guess, not to make a too long video, we can say that this is fine for now. And in this case we have the Bergans Helium Dome 3, which is not a tent from this year, but it will hold up for many years to come. It's a 4-season tent and made for winter. And something that's very important when it's very cold outside is that you keep your gloves on. You keep your gloves on no matter what you're doing, so you don't freeze your fingers. Sometimes you have to take them off to do fine spec works, but mostly you gotta keep them on. So we're starting with taking out the parts from the tents, and when it's snow, it's very easy that your stakes and pole and small pieces will disappear, so keep them at the same site. This tent, I can link to another video with this tent, but then it was put up in summer, and it was much easier to put it up. But you have to start with setting up the inner tent first and decide which side your opening is going to be. And I really hope that the microphone is working now, because I don't want to do this one more time in the garden. This summer I broke one of these poles, so I got a new one. And they are color coded, so the reds go in the red sleeves, the black in the black sleeves, and the yellow one in the yellow sleeve. And one thing that I have discovered with this tent is that it's very easy to break the poles, because the canals are very tight, and as you go and push the poles inside the canals, it's very easy to use too much force. So I'm starting with putting up one of these poles. Keep going with the black one. And I can already now feel the discomfort of doing this outside, especially when filming with expensive camera equipment, which now, by the way, is the Sony FX3. I put up a habitat which the camera is staying under, so I'm not risking getting snow into the hands. You really have to work this very carefully so we don't break the poles again. But this is the pros with practicing, that you find out better ways to do things and how not to do things. There we are all the way, and slowly and carefully push back the canal, and be careful that you don't divide the poles inside the canal, then it can be very difficult to get it back. We have one red pole and two black poles on this dome. The last black one goes the other way. On the backside here, it's a little bit difficult to speak at the same time. I'm doing this because I'm concentrating on not breaking the poles. And let's say you're on a trip and it's cold and snow outside, and you are about to set camp. You also should learn how to do this pretty fast, so you don't start freezing too much. Here we are, slowly backwards. A little bit difficult to feel when you're wearing gloves, but it works fine. Now I can feel a little bit of resistance here, and then I can see the pole has slipped out of its socket, and that's where it often breaks. There we go. Is that it's not melting as long as we're outside, so you can just shake it off before we go in. I said it was one red pole. My fault, it's two. Important to get up every pole so we get a stiff structure. Use your hands all the way around so you don't rip up the tent, which can be very critical when you're out in the wilderness. Let's say you're up in the mountains, you have no one else around, you're alone. You rip up your tent and you don't have anything to repair it with, then you probably should go back home to your bed. So Here the inner tent is ready. We put down a couple of stakes to make the tent safe. One in each corner. We have these kind of stakes. Normally in winter when it's snow, you should probably use your skis to anchor your tent, but since we only have 20 centimeters of snow, we can remove the snow and put down these stakes instead. Since it's snowing as much as it's doing now, I don't bother with putting down all of the stakes and securing the outer tent very carefully, which you should do in the mountains when it's blowing a lot. Dome tents when it's wind. The inner tent pretty fast gets wet. So the best thing with this is to get it on a sled and have it halfway finished and just roll it up when you are at your campsite. The last pole in the yellow sleeve, and I can feel the tent is much more stiff now in this minus cold degrees. So it's a complete different thing to work with than it's in the summer. I'm taking out 4 stakes, putting them down. But if you're doing this in real life and you're planning to sleep in it, you definitely should have to use all the threads and stakes to secure the tent against wind, snow, and weather in general. Because this is definitely not good enough for any conditions out there. So as I said, this is only for demonstration purpose only. And when you're rushing, things tend to go wrong. So just keep calm and work slow and determined to get it finished. Everything Here we go. My dream is to test this tent this winter, but I guess it will be pretty difficult to get some time off to do that. And I guess no one else is interested in doing this with me. So this is for you who wants to try it out and have the time. Okay, a couple of more stakes to get this flap out. Okay, now I guess you got the idea of how this works, and we can do the last step. Well, now I guess you got the idea of how this works. How you have to put up the inner tent first, then the outer tent, and all of the wires, or what you call it in English. And the last thing to do with a winter tent, with the skirts, storm skirts, is to put the snow on them to keep the wind from outside the tent. Like this. Now we have a safe home for the night in the snow. Have a nice trip.